Good evening, everyone. It's rolled around again. Friday is here. I hope you're all doing well. And yes, indeed. What's Friday all about? Beer. Cheers. This evening, once again, is brought to you courtesy of Cronenberg 1664. I'm not sponsored, but that is going to be responsible for most of the rubbish that comes out of my mouth in the next hour or so. Yes, indeed. Let's cut to the chase and go and do the register, as we call it, the roll call, if you like. I'm hoping I've got the camera settings reasonably dialed in tonight. It is looking a little bit bright. I'll have a look at that in a moment and see if I can calm me out. It's okay if I go back here. I'll come back here to read what's on screen. It tends to make me look a bit more like Uncle Fester. I see we've got Johnny Random first in this evening. Gordo Canuck, and where are we? And Edwin Toonan is there as well. So is Bridget Pollock. And there's Wilson Jones. Greetings from Westminster. So a Westminster correspondent. I always wanted to say something like that. And who else? We've got Mike Hurley and Craig Stamen. Craig can't make it tonight. He's working away and beyond where the live stream is going, as in now, but he'll watch it with a beer or 8 later. There's Anton in, and who else we got? Dr. Gomez one, and Vincent Brennan is there. So is Steve Entwistle, and scrolling down. Robster Boy, how are you, Robert? Then there's Robert Z or Z. I also have to give it that way because it could be either, couldn't it, really? Then we've got Chip Young. Grandpa Joe is there. So is, scrolling down, let's have a look. Phil, it's starting to fill up now. Then we've got Michael Palmer and Balder. How are you, Rob? Then Mark Kerno and let's have a look. Dennis Flock is there. So is sometimes thin, never dim, rather. Then we got Luke's in, and David Evans, then Peter Collins, and Marvellous Bloke and Simon M, and Paul Trainer, and John Ross. It's all starting to kind of fill up a little bit now, as I said. Jimmy James is there, and so is 60s Man. And who else we got? Let's have a look. We've got David Collins and Malcolm Spillett. Hello all. Finally made it as my wife's home from the hospital after 2 weeks and 4 different infections. No be those I have to drive after this. Well, give your lovely lady wife all of our best regards, mate. There's Thomas Mulvaney, and who else we got? Brad Matthews, the Essex Cat, James Hunt, and who else? Let's see. Just scrolling down. And Lawrence Hastings, have I said you already? If I haven't, I just have now. There's Terry Day, and Chris Otterwell is in, and so is Savvy64. Colin Falcon is in, regular as clockwork. Pablo Hank and John Channing are both in there. And then we've got Dave Lewis and Sean House, and who else? Stratboy999, Stuart Young is in as well, and there's Paul Trainer. Have I said you already, mate? I can't remember. Gretch Zeppelin, Jeff C, Dash Shaft, Watches and Guitars, and let's have a look. We've got Calby and the Rocco Cat, and David James, and Dudley Squat, and Bill Mumbo, and Ben Allmark. Who else? Mark Gowans, Dash Shaft, Nella Yema. I beg your pardon if that's correct, pronounced wrong. And then we've got Solo Rider 831, and scrolling down, Tom G is there. So is Wilson Jones. And he's saying, you've got a new amp this week, 1978 Orange one with 1200 watt. It's about as heavy as the moon. Yes, indeed, and about as loud as Concorde taking off, I imagine, as well. There's Steve Lamb, and who else is in? Solo Rider 831. Have I said you already? I might have done. My memory is going. I must apologise. And David Evans, been there, haven't we? And I think that's about all of us, really. So what a merry little bunch. 137 so far in to turn up and watch a fat bald lad drink beer before he has his curry. Oh, I see we've got Dylan in and Deco Dude. Yes, break from tradition tonight. Well, back to the old tradition. It's curry for our evening sustenance in the Robson household. Just changing it up a little bit, mainly because we're having a roast dinner on Sunday, which is often curry night in this house. So, round about this time, I've written it all down. How prepared am I? There's a couple of things I want to talk about this week. A couple of things that have kind of spewed forth from the comments section in a few videos that I've done lately, and we'll come to that in due course. But usually around about this time of night, I tell you what's coming up on the channel this week. So that's what we're doing now. No Saturday video this week. As I say, that's just for special occasions. But Sunday, I did that Epiphone Les Paul Jr. review last week, wasn't it, on Sunday? Well, the chaps from Faisley got in touch and said, we make a guitar that's very much like that, but it's a lot cheaper. Would you like to review that? Review ours? So I said, well, yes, of course. So they sent me, I think it's a Faisley FSC 318, which is basically a Faisley Les Paul Jr. copy. So we're looking at that on Sunday. And then in due course, there's going to be a comparison between that and the Epiphone, which is already filmed, and the Epiphone has sold, by the way. The Epiphone sold last, I think it, when did it go? I mentioned it on the live stream last week, didn't I? And by Saturday it had gone. Anyway, so yeah, Sunday is the Faisley Les Paul Jr. copy. Then you may recall a few weeks ago I did a video about one of the top 5 Tuesday videos about my top 5 favourite supergroups. Well, Monday's solo is going to be a solo from one of those bands. And if I tell you it's a slide solo, so think about one of the supergroups that I mentioned in that video and think about which, if you can't remember, well, I'll think of a clue, but basically it's a slide solo on Monday. Then Tuesday, as is the custom, is a top 5 video. And this was one that came, I think, directly from the chat on the live stream a few weeks ago. Somebody said, how about making a video about the 5 greatest guitarists you've discovered via YouTube? And I thought, what a brilliant idea. So that is Tuesday's video. Guitarists that I would never have come across if it hadn't been for this wonderful medium of YouTube. Then Wednesday's video is another viewer's question type video. I'm not sure how long I'm going to keep that going, because I've noticed that the views are starting to drop off a little bit, and the questions are starting to dry up. I've got still got a few in reserve, but it's starting to kind of, you kind of get a sense when you've been making videos a while that this topic is kind of running out of steam. So we'll see how that goes. But if you want to get if you have a question that you want me to answer in a video, anything at all remotely guitar or music related, then get in touch. jrguitartuition@gmail.com, or you can leave a comment below any of my videos, or you can use the contact form on my website, johnrobsonmusic.co.uk/lessons, and there's an email form there. You could put it in the chat, but chances are, as I'm blethering away here like this, I tend to miss a lot of what's going on in the chat, and I'll scroll back periodically, but often I miss a lot of stuff that goes on in the chat. So if you have a question and you want me to do a video about a particular topic, then get in touch via the ways that I've mentioned. Someone did I do apologize, I forgot the name, but someone got in touch with me a little while ago asking that age-old question I've done at least a couple of videos on already, but I thought, yes, let's revisit the topic. How do you learn the fretboard? What's the best way of doing it? What system is, kind of works the best? What's the magic bullet for learning where the notes are on the neck? Well, I'm not sure there is a magic bullet or a magic formula, but all I can do is show you how I did it. and that is what Wednesday's video is about. Then on Thursday, we are looking at what I think is possibly the best guitar Paul Reed Smith has ever made. In my opinion, opinions will vary, but the best guitar that PRS have ever made. The video is entitled, I think, The Perfect PRS, and I think I might have put a question mark on it just to kind of show that it is a matter of some debate, but in my opinion, it is the best guitar that PRS have ever made. So that is this week on the channel, and let's have a scroll back through the chat and see what is going on. Yeah, Johnny Love is saying, wow, Faisley FSC 318 now in back shop for £78. Yeah, that's cheaper than it was when I last checked. Stuart Young is saying, is it Dwayne Allman on slide? No, it isn't. Think of I'll tell you who it is on slide. It's George Harrison on slide. So think of a supergroup with George Harrison in it, where he played a little bit of slide guitar. And let's have a look. Balder is saying the new Harley Benton jazz basses for about 202 are looking like a tasty backup. I'm in the market for a new bass, so I am looking at some of those Harley Benton basses. The only problem is that Toeman are still on the naughty step with me. I'm afraid. Solo Rider is saying, just want to say thanks for the Vanson pickup recommendation. My Strat build sounds great. Yeah, those Vanson pickups are absolutely fantastic, and I don't know if you remember, but years ago, I think this is probably going back to about 2018 or maybe perhaps 2019 or maybe even earlier than that. What happened was one of my students, one of my Zoom, or it was Skype at the time, students, decided he was going to go into the pickup business, and he started building pickups, and he basically he asked me to endorse them, so I did. I said, well, make me some humbuckers for the... Oh, thank you, Paul Trainer. You're a gentleman, mate. He made me some pickups for that Yamaha Pacifica, that guitar that I sort of built and modded, and well, not built, but bought and modded, and they were okay, and we were kind of having a back and forth about, what I wanted from pickups and stuff like that. And then suddenly he just stopped answering emails, and I don't know what happened, but the pickups were called Pink Flower pickups. I don't know if you can think back that far. Anyway, the point of the story is that he told me, that on a pickup that he would sell for 75 quid or thereabouts, it cost him less than 10 quid to build. And that's, buying the parts at essentially retail price, So if you're a big pickup manufacturer and you can buy the components at, wholesale price, then you can probably cut that number in half. So, it's not the fact I think that Vansons are so cheap. I think Vansons are, quite, and arguably Tone Riders as well, and Iron Gear, although they're a little bit more expensive. It's just that the fact that if something has got, let's say 10 quid's worth of components in it, then you do look at some prices for some of the, the big name pickup manufacturers, and you think, what are you doing? Just thinking of a number and doubling it. So there you go. That's how true that is. I don't know. Because I don't. I've never. That might be something to do actually, though. See if I can build a pickup. Yeah, watch this space. But I've never done it as yet, so I don't know what the cost of the materials are. I don't know if you'd put kind of this much wire into it, or this much. I've never actually looked into it. So, but that might be a thing to do in a video. We shall see. Dave Pegg is saying, hope the PRS is not a custom. Too much money for what you get, in my opinion. Yeah, well, yes, indeed. It isn't a custom. It's very far from that. I will let you know that I'm not into, as you know, PRS guitars on the whole, the image that you have in your mind of a PRS guitar, I'm just going to calm this camera down a little bit actually, but the image that you have in your mind when you think of a PRS guitar is of, you know, that kind of blingy, let's get that there, that's looking a little bit less bleached out, isn't it? Is that kind of blingy sort of, I often call it footballers' wives or Liberace style guitar. And that's not really my cup of tea. But they do make a guitar which I think is an absolutely fantastic thing. Let's see what else. Oh, yes, we've got Travelling Wilburys. I see we've got a few answers there about the supergroup Travelling Wilburys. Yes, Monday's solo is a Travelling Wilburys solo. Probably the one song that, you know, because that was a great album. I think I need to turn that. I do apologise. I get a bit paranoid about this camera. I think that first Travelling Wilburys album, because they did two, Volume 1 and Volume 3. Don't know what happened to Volume 2. But where was I? Yes, that first Travelling Wilburys album, not a bad track on it, I think. But there's one song on there that seems to be the one that has stood the test of time. And Dave Lewis is saying, did I get a chance to watch the Guitarist's new Friday video today? It's brilliant. I did indeed. I was watching it. I was watching it about an hour ago, actually. Yes, indeed. A cautionary tale in that: use short screws if you're going to kind of screw anything into the pickup cavity, because it can end rather badly. Anyway, excuse me, folks. I need to just top up the tanks. Time Profit, what you're saying, mate? I seen your ERT demo, but I noticed two other guitar makes have the same body, including the Strandberg. Are they all made by the same people with different names? Prices vary. No, essentially the ERT is a Strandberg copy. And you know, the Strandberg is like, you know, kind of getting on for $2,000 for, you know, for just to kind of get the base model. And it's got a weird neck on the Strandberg. Phil McKnight did a video about them where it's like it's not a conventionally kind of profiled neck. Looking at it, it looks like I'm thinking that will feel really, really weird to play on. But you know, no one until I kind of have personal experience, I can't speak of it. But everybody says they are really comfortable to play on. But it's got this kind of weird asymmetric neck. Handle with care. John Mack is saying, is it the PRS you already have, John? Yes, the cat is out of the bag. Basically, it is. I've had this guitar a little while now, and I'm starting to do a few kind of long-term reviews of guitars that have been around a little while. I've just finished doing another one today for another one of the guitars that's in here, and there's going to be a little bit of an audit either towards the end of this year or beginning of next year about guitars that have passed the long-term test, and sadly one or two that haven't, because I've got my eye on an Eastman guitar. I fancy checking out Eastman. I've heard so much stuff about them. Nothing other than good stuff about Eastman guitars. So I'm thinking about, I might have to liberate a few in here. There are a few candidates that might have to, you know, that have maybe going on to pastures new, shall we say. None of the obvious candidates. Spoiler alert, Blondie's going nowhere. My Les Paul's going nowhere. That PRS is going nowhere. And, well, other than that, you can make up your own mind. But there's going to be a thinning of the herd in the next few months, because I want to kind of raise some cash to get myself an Eastman just to see what they're like. Nice to see you, Nancy. And no, Jay How Young, it's not the Vela. David Evans is saying, did you see my comment about your T-shirt? I didn't, but I shall scroll up now and have a look for it. Let's have a look. Someone. Yes, indeed. Very appropriate T-shirt for the day, mate. Lest we forget. Indeed, yes, the 11th day of the 11th month. It's I was in the middle of tabbing out a solo at 11 a.m. this morning, and I stopped what I was doing and just had a quiet little contemplation for a couple of minutes, as you say, lest we forget. Anyway, Deco Dude is saying, have you seen that neck with the Wrigley offset frets? I have, and I saw Daryl Braun's video about it, but I've seen guitars with those kind of frets before, true temperament frets, and whilst on paper it seems like a good idea, it's just like, well, you think of all of the great guitar solos that you've heard, all of the great guitar tones that you've heard. Neville Martin from Guitarist magazine years ago postulated that all of the best guitar tones have already been heard. All we're trying to do now is kind of recreate them, come up with variations on them. But think of all of the great guitar solos that you've heard that were played on frets that were kind of as straight as an arrow. It's just the whole kind of true temperament thing. And I have heard it before that you basically have to detune your guitar for the guitar to play in tune with those frets. Every so often, something like this comes along where it's, this revolutionary new wave of having the guitar play that little bit better in tune. In the 90s, it was the Buzz Featon tuning system, if anyone remembers that. And it all smacks of being a little bit gimmicky to me. Because, hey, if you're... think of it this way, right? If you've got a guitar that is perfectly kind of tempered and in tune, then would your bass player also need to have that kind of arrangement on their frets, et cetera, et cetera? As far as I'm aware, the reason that the occupation of a piano tuner exists, because if you think about it, ever since kind of digital tuners became a thing, or electronic tuners became a thing, I often wondered, well, why do people still earn a lot of money to go around and tune pianos by ear? And the answer is apparently because I asked somebody, and I can't be honest with you, I can't remember the details of the answer, but the gist of it is that there are tuning discrepancies across the whole range of an instrument that have to be averaged out across every note. And so if everybody is in the band is kind of singing from that same kind of let's average out all of the tuning discrepancies across the whole range of the instrument kind of playbook, and you're not, because you've got true temperament, then how is that going to work? Will that not cause a problem? I don't know. I'm just putting that out there. So bottom line is, I think that is just another one of these gimmicky kind of things that will appeal to some people, and if it does, well, fine. But there you go. Anyway, let's have a look. Let's have a look. Yeah, watch Daryl Braun's video on those frets as well. Looks like the frets were in my in a Salvador Dali painting. I did a video ages ago about guitars that make me go nah, and it was one of those sort of tongue-in-cheek videos. Whenever I do one of those, people always seem to kind of take it literally and take it seriously, and vent their spleen in the comments section, which I don't want to talk about in a moment. But I think I referred to them in that video as frets that look like they were installed by the council. Anyway, James Falconer, I'm with you on that one, mate. David Evans is saying, I use Cubase and it suggests middle C is C3. It should be C4. Well, that's it, you see. The guitar is, let me get this right. The guitar, when you write out guitar music in standard notation, it is an octave out. Because if I just pick up this guitar because it's the nearest, that note there, first fret on the B string, is actually the pitch of middle C, okay? But when you write that out in guitar music, that is actually the third, when you write that out in notation for guitar, that is actually the third line, third space up, isn't it? F-A-C, yeah, that's the third space up. But on piano music, that would actually be, let me think, that would be the line below the lowest line in the treble clef, I believe. So guitar music is written an octave higher than it's played. If I've got that wrong, I'll blame the beer, but that is how I understand it. Anyway, talking about the comment section, every few months or so, there is always somebody who crops up in the comment section and gives me a hard time for introducing every video with "hello chaps." You know, usually calling me a sexist dinosaur or something like that. Can I just clarify once and for all? Okay, you go to any American-based YouTube channel, and I'll guarantee 90% of them will open their videos with "Hi guys." Well, I'm just saying the British equivalent. Okay, just kind of saying hi guys. It just seems wrong coming out of a fat northern lad's mouth, you know, fat northern British lad's mouth. It's like that. We have a pair of celebrity cooks in the UK. They're called the Hairy Bikers, and there's one of them. He's from my neck of the woods. And he often sort of speaks in sort of Californianisms. Do you know what I mean? Where he'll kind of say "rock on, dude" and stuff like that, and it sounds so wrong coming out of his mouth. It's a bit like, imagine if Keanu Reeves were to say "way aye lad." You know, it just doesn't fit the accent. You know, so when I'm saying "hello chaps," I'm being as inclusive as any American YouTuber who says "hi guys," so that's that one put to bed. Hopefully, well, it won't be. There'll be somebody that'll be, you know, doing a bit of pearl clutching and, you know, kind of wanting to be, you know, the kind of people who wake up every morning wondering what they can be offended about today. Anyway, and then the whole thing about how I get a clean sound, I've been getting a bit of a hard time in the comment section about that of late. The way I get a clean sound, as you know, is I dial in a dirty sound on the amp, and then I think, well, the volume control on the guitar is there for a reason. So I think I like to have a dirty sound on tap, and I like to have a clean sound on tap. And if I can kind of go between those in an organic way, where I can kind of blend between clean and dirty with the guitar's volume control, then that's the way I like to do it. It stems from my early days of gigging in the sort of early 80s. And when I say gigging, I'm talking about kind of daft little school music room bands that would do school concerts and occasionally do, you know, the odd little kind of gig at a youth club, and then gradually, you know, when you're old enough to get into a pub, you can start playing a few kind of open mic nights at pubs. It was that. And my first amplifier was a Laney Mighty 50, little kind of single channel 50 watt transistor solid state Laney amplifier that had, you know, you could kind of crank it up and get in my memory, a great dirty sound. It probably wasn't. I actually saw one in Cash Converters about a year ago, and thought I should get that really and do a video about it. But the thing is, it was a heavy lump, and it was a long way to carry it home, so I didn't. Wished I had now. but you know, having a single channel amp, and while you're still saving up for a fuzz box to get a dirty sound, that was the way you did it. You kind of you dialed in the dirty sound on the amp and you cleaned it up by the guitar's volume control. That's how I do it. That's how I like to do it. That works for me. And it gives me a clean sound. And then people who say, why do you always go for a gain sound on the amp? And no, we want to hear it through a clean channel. Well, good luck with that, because I'm playing a Marshall DSL-1. It doesn't really have a clean channel. It has a gain channel and an even more gain channel. So, you know, this one guy, he said, you know, the fact that you're, excuse me, my phone is pinging. The fact that you're just dialing it back from on the guitar's volume control is nothing short of laziness. So there you go. Let me know what you think. Is that something that you guys are, you know, kind of adept at doing? Is that the way you tend to do it? Is it a generational thing? Is it people like me who kind of started playing in the late 70s and cut their teeth in the 80s with, you know, kind of a cheap single channel amp where you had to do that and you kind of got used to doing it? Or, you know, is it something that everybody does? Because it just seems like a normal thing to do to me. For instance, what else is the guitar's volume control there for? Dr. Gomez, I had one of those 50-watt Laney amps. I thought it was crap. It probably was, mate. It probably was. But it was just, it was loud. What you're saying there, Johnny Love, old school clean sound with a volume knob is fantastic, and you have a whole range of sounds there. Also recommended by Dave Friedman. I think he knows a thing or two about guitar sounds, indeed. Vincent Brendan saying, Chaps is one of the largest high-value payment systems in the world, providing efficient settlement-free. Okay, well, not sure about that, mate, but I'm not sure what you're on about there, mate. Northern Thrifter, I love the affordable aspect of the John. Stick two fingers up the market and hype and cork sniffers. Well, yeah. It's just I don't know. I don't kind of consciously go that way, but what's wrong with being sexy, Nigel Tuffle? Indeed. Yes, indeed, Edwin. I'm with you on that one. I'm going to put you up on the hello, chaps. Includes the gals as well, even in Dutch. Well, nice to know, mate. Have you seen the sartorial series of YouTube videos called The Chap's Guide? I haven't. That sounds sartorial. That sounds a bit like it might be getting into male grooming territory, which all I've got to say about that is, look at me. Male grooming, me. Let's have a look. Indeed, I'm with you on that one, Mike Early. Let's have a look. John Mack is saying wokeness not allowed on this channel. It's nice to know. It's nice to know that I'm in tune with my audience. The overwhelming messages there about the Hello Chap stuff. I see we've got the Rockabilly train wreck in. How are you, mate? You're in USA, Missouri. I hope you're having a beer, because just remember, it's 5 o'clock somewhere. Pablo Hank, I didn't know that. Cy from the Hairy Bikers, the celebrity chefs we're talking about, occasionally plays bongos with Northeast soul funk band Groove Train. I've seen them. If it's the same band, because Groove Train is the kind of name for a band that I suspect many bands have had over the years, but if it's the same band, I turned up to watch a gig by another great Northeast band, the Alligators. If anyone in the Northeast remembers the Alligators, basically it was Hilton Valentine. Who's he? He was the guitarist in the Animals. He was the guy who came up with, and I'm not plugged in here, but you'll know the riff that I mean. I'll play it. That, The House of the Rising Sun, that iconic arpeggiated guitar part. Hilton Valentine, his band in the 90s was called The Alligators, and they were an absolutely storming kind of blues rock band. Like really properly good, tight as a tight thing on a tight day in a tight town. Fantastic band. And they were due to be playing at some social club that they were booked to play at. And I thought, yeah, I've got to go and see them. And turned up, and the typical situation, mix up with the agent, and they weren't on. It was this band called Groove Train, but it was, you know, I'd travelled all that way to go and see them, so I thought, yeah, well, okay, I'll watch the band that's on instead, and they were really good. Talking about Hilton Valentine and House of the Rising Sun, that band, the Alligators, they did a charity gig. I can't remember what the charity it was. Again, at a social club somewhere up this neck of the woods, and this is going back to sort of mid-90s or thereabouts. And yeah, and the band I was in at the time, what was the band called? What band was I in at that time? I think the band was called Big Ed at the time. Big as in large, and Ed as in Edward. Because long story why the band got that name. But anyway, we were on the same bill as them, and I was more starstruck than I can ever remember. The fact that this was not only the guitarist from the Alligators, who I'd seen and was kind of a big fan of. This was the guitar player from House that played House of the Rising Sun, and you know, and I went up to him and said, "Excuse me, Mr. Valentine, I just want to say that you're one of the reasons that I decided to play the guitar." And he looked at me over the top of his pint glass and said, "Don't blame me, son." Top bloke. Anyway, chaps. Clearinghouse automated payment system, i.e. a way of sending money. Well, every day is a school day. I didn't know that. I see Gordo Canuck is off there. All sorts of internet problems in this part of the world. So we'll say early good night to all. Start work early AM, so I've got to get my beauty rest. Well, thanks for turning up, Gordo. Nice to see you pretty much every week. It's you're one of the regulars around these parts. Yes, Time Prophet. House of the Rising Sun was by the Animals, but that was in the 60s. And what I'm saying is that by the time the 90s had rolled around, the Animals were no longer a thing. And Hilton Valentine was playing in a blues rock kind of originals and covers band in my part of the world. And as I say, they were called the Alligators. You're going out for a beer with 5 guitarists. Who do you choose? Oh, dear me. Right. I'm not going to let the cat out the bag here, but that is 5 guitarists I'd like to have a beer with. Yep, indeed. That is going to be a top 5 Tuesday. that is written down. Look, that's official now. I'm going to do a video about that. So yeah, William Forrest is saying saw the Alligators a few times in the 90s. They were pretty good. I think they were absolutely excellent, mate. Yes. John, and John buys the beers. Yeah, well, indeed. Anyway, you still use the old parchment and quill. I could just keep a little kind of scratch pad in the office for when I'm when I'm kind of writing ideas down, and usually when I'm doing a video, and you kind of see me glancing down there when I'm doing a top 5 Tuesday, I've got some notes written on a pad down there. Excuse me. So I still do use. I can write better than I can type. Basically, I get less spelling errors when I write with a pen. When I first started doing the online lessons via Skype and latterly Zoom, I used to do them like I would do lessons in the room here, and when I'm doing lessons in the room here, I'm writing stuff out for students, just longhand, and then I would spend about 20 minutes after every lesson, kind of scanning all of these pages of notes that I would then email to people. I've since worked out a better way of doing it, but there you go. Jimmy James is saying top 5 producers. I didn't do that. The reason I didn't do that is because it was suggested on the live stream and I didn't make a note of it. And I was, on the live stream here, I'm drinking beer and I'll think, yeah, that's a great idea. I must remember that. And if I don't write it down, I often forget it. 5 guitarists you stand a good chance in a fight with. Well, I haven't had a fight since I was in the playground at school. I think. There may have been 1 or 2 occasions where it got close, but I don't think I've ever really. Anyway, let's get off the subject of battling. Time Prophet is saying, have you ever seen the Hamsters? They're great at doing ZZ Top and Jimi Hendrix. I saw the Hamsters many, many times. The first time I saw them was do you remember when Guitarist magazine used to do those little kind of effectively mini NAMM events, the guitarist shows? They did them in London and Manchester for a few years. And I actually met Albert Lee at one of those. Great bloke. Now, he'll probably be on the list of the 5 guitarists I'll go for a beer with. But then again, I did have a beer with Albert Lee at one of those events. Saw the Hamsters there. I can't remember. They were demonstrating some product or something, some amplifiers or whatever. And they were absolutely fantastic. Big sound from a 3-piece band. So they were selling cassettes. That's how long ago it was. They were selling cassettes, their latest cassette album, at these gigs, and I bought them, but it never really kind of translated particularly well. I guess they were one of those bands that you had to see live because the studio stuff it lacked the kind of the energy and the impact of the live shows. I thought. Steve Muller, or Muller, is it? I do apologise if I'm butchering your name there. Have you heard Guthrie Govan's solo on Stephen Wilson's Drive Home? If not, well worth checking out. I haven't, so I will. So let me make a note of that as well. GG, Guthrie Govan, Drive Home. I must admit, I think Guthrie is possibly or probably the greatest guitarist walking the earth at the moment. That said, I really, really, really have tried. I have tried so hard to get into the Aristocrats stuff, and it's just a bit too out there for me. I just wish he would do another solo album like he did with Erotic Cakes, because that for me, I was listening to it this morning, actually, as you know. Well, maybe you don't, but I've mentioned it a few times. My morning routine is I get up at absolutely stupid on a morning, 5:30 every morning, and just kind of sit and put music on and drink a bucket of coffee before I take the dog out for a walk. And part of that is I'll either read the paper or read a book, while I've got the music on for an hour or thereabouts and listen to an album. And this morning it was Guthrie Govan, Erotic Cakes. What an album that is! It's shreddy and kind of virtuoso guitar, but it's just so melodic all the way through. And I don't know, I just can't get into the Aristocrats stuff. Time Prophet. I think you'll find that Michelangelo Batio is probably the greatest guitarist alive at the moment. I'm not going to get into this kind of who can pee higher up the wall kind of contest with this. Michelangelo Batio is a great guitar player. I'm not going to question that. It's just, when you say the greatest guitar player or the greatest at this or that, the other, there's always a strong element of personal opinion and subjective like and dislike in there. And for me, it's Guthrie. So there you go. Where are we? Let's have a look, see what else we've been talking about. It seems I'm not alone on the Aristocrats. John Robson Guitars. You'd pick Hank Marvin, Mark Knopfler, Gary Moore by Ouija board, mate. That's a good question. 5 guitarists, because if you're going to say, well, let's widen it. 5 musicians you'd go for a beer with, alive or dead. Well, a big part of me would want to kind of not necessarily go for a beer with, but I'd certainly want to have a chat with, and we'd probably need a sign language. We'd probably need somebody kind of doing the sign language there. I'd love to have Beethoven, because I did a video a little while ago, a few weeks ago, about the kind of music that you probably wouldn't think I listened to, and it was basically about classical music. And I'm finding myself listening more and more to Beethoven in that genre at the moment. Full symphonies, like the Pastoral, for example, and obviously everybody knows the Fifth Symphony, but just the fact that he wrote this amazing music while he was as deaf as a post, I just find is absolutely amazing. And I would love to kind of, if you could go back in a time machine and kind of ask, well, how do you kind of get this? You can't hear the music, so how do you know what it's going to sound like? I find that amazing. Yes, Danny Hancock, not much conversation with Beethoven. That's why I said you'd need a sign language. Imagine having a beer with Keith Moon, says Brad Matthews. If you've ever seen, if you haven't, go and watch it. The Eagles 2-part documentary, was it The History of the Eagles? There's a fantastic quote in that from Joe Walsh, where he says, "One of the worst things that ever happened to me in my life was that Keith Moon decided he liked me." You could see the memories of the kind of catastrophic hangovers that kind of sprung forth in his mind. But yeah, Keith, he was a character, wasn't he? It has to be said. Dave Lewis is saying the Aristocrats are 3 amazing musicians. I'm not for 1 second disputing that, and I would agree with you wholeheartedly. It's just that it's all a little bit kind of out there for me. It just doesn't kind of, what I've heard, I must admit, it's only based on what I've heard, which is a couple of albums that I've listened to, a couple of times, and it was just, okay, this is getting on my nerves a bit now. It's an album doesn't have to kind of grab me immediately. I'm well aware that some of the best music in the world just takes a little bit of a time. There's a slow burn. You need to kind of immerse yourself in it, and eventually it gets under your skin. I get that, But if, when you listen to an album and you're really trying and it's just kind of, I wouldn't say annoying you, but it's kind of, this is getting a little bit kind of, yeah, no, it's distracting me and kind of irritating me a little bit. I've got to tell you, that's exactly how I felt about listening to the Aristocrats. So there you go. Beethoven didn't play the guitar, mate. But as I said, I widened the question to musicians rather than guitarists. There's definitely, perhaps, 5 musicians alive or dead I'd like to have a beer with. We shall see. That there's definitely the seed of a video in there. We're going to kind of we're going to run with that. Yes, indeed. Let's have a look. I know a man who did have a beer with Keith Moon. Oh dear. The Monty Python Beethoven sketch, indeed. Yes, I'd forgot about that. Yeah, classical music is soul food for me, says Murray Music, as much as I enjoy rock. I must admit, I blame the education system for in this country for putting me off classical music for many, many years. Because, you'd go to your music lesson in school and like all I wanted to do was to be able to kind of play, I don't know, whatever the kind of current raunchy kind of rocky raucous guitar thing was. I wanted to kind of know about that. And no, okay, today children, we're going to listen to some Brahms. Write down your feelings that you write down the feelings that this inspires you for, and the music teacher would just put the needle on the record and kind of sit and drink a cup of coffee and kind of read Reader's Digest for an hour while we kind of wrote down what we thought about Brahms. And I got a right rollicking offer one day because write down your feelings, what this music makes you feel. And I just said boredom. And so, it was kind of force fed to you, so we later on got a music teacher who would kind of pull us in, and sort of say, well, okay, did you know that this famous rock tune, which was, kind of White a Shade of Pale, was actually based on this classical piece, and kind of get you interested like that and reel you in. But, it was sort of force fed to us at school. And that makes you rebel against it. And about 20 years ago now, I thought, I call myself a musician, but there's this entire genre of music that I've willfully ignored for all my adult life. So I'm just going to go and check it out. And I did, and found out what I liked and what I disliked, and what kind of floated me boat and what didn't, and kind of investigated it under my own steam. So it's worth doing because it gives you a different perspective. Let's have a look. Murray Music is saying, as a child, I hated classical. Then I grew older. The more older I grew, I grew to love it, especially Satie and Debussy and lots of others. Timeless beauty, indeed. I must admit, I also have a soft spot for Fauré. That's is it Gabriel or Gabriel Fauré? So let's have a look. Let's see what we've been talking about. David Evans is saying, my 3 girls being choristers at Bradford Cathedral was a great musical education. I imagine it would have been, mate. Yes. The great sort of musical polymath, as I think of him, Howard Goodall. Just go on to YouTube at some point and search for Howard Goodall. Many of you will be aware of him, but if you're not, he's well worth checking out. Great music educator. He's one of these guys who can just perfect pitch and, can just identify a chord or a note just by listening to it. And he credits that with being, a boy chorister when he was a child. So there you go. Let's for his requiem, indeed. Paul Trainer, Holst the Planets, Mars. Every rock musician, every single Chopin as well, indeed. Every rock musician always cites the Planet Suite, and especially Mars by Holst. It's a fantastic. It's like, think of the Planet Suite as being basically a concept album, but just written by a composer and recorded by an orchestra. It's essentially that. It's and of course Jupiter. I did a video about that eons ago, where I actually kind of did an interpretation of Jupiter. Beautiful piece of music. Well, all of it is beautiful, but without Mars by Holst, you wouldn't have had Black Sabbath, and that is Geezer Butler, straight from that's straight from the horse's mouth. He kind of says that's basically where that riff came from. Let's have a look, see what we've got. Yes, Chris Otwell. Howard Goodall has made some great TV programs, very informative and enjoyable. Stravinsky invented heavy metal. Well, yeah, you could say that, mate. You could say that. James Falconer, Wagner, Ride of the Valkyries, awesome. Yeah, Wagner is the archetypal case of, like, do you kind of separate the man's art from his views? Let's say he was a certain Austrian corporal's favorite composer for a reason. Like they shared similar views. Let's put it that way. Talking about orchestral music now, again, this is harking back to a video I did ages ago when I had like about 1,000 subscribers or something. But it's up on YouTube, and it's well worth checking out. I think it's only in mono sound-wise, which is a shame. But in 1990, the BBC did this show called Beecham, which was about the great conductor Sir Thomas Beecham, who was a musical genius and a bit of a bad lad, it has to be said, in his day. And it's a theatrical, sort of a kind of theatrical production with musical interludes, and it's just called Beecham. It stars Timothy West. So just kind of search on YouTube for BBC Beecham Timothy West or something like that. And it's just a fantastic, entertaining, musical, educational, funny. It's really funny kind of thing. Some of the quotes that he came out with are absolutely amazing. For instance, and I'll leave you with this one this evening. He was conducting the orchestra for a performance of the Bolshoi Ballet, and he had a dinner engagement afterwards, and he didn't want to be late for his date with his new fancy woman, basically. And so he's up there conducting, kind of double tempo and everything, and gets to the end of the performance so he can kind of scoot out for his hot date, and he just goes, "That made the little buggers hop," which is just, anyway, it's a great show, so check it out on YouTube. And once again, chaps, we're coming up to the end of the live stream, and I've got a curry arriving very soon, so I'm going to love you and leave you. I'm going to swig off the rest of my beer and go and wait downstairs for the doorbell to ring with a nice man from the curry house with my chicken tikka. So until next time, thank you once again, everyone, for turning up and watching a fat, bald northern lump of lard talk absolute nonsense for an hour. It's been a blast, and I'll keep on doing it till you're sick of me. But for now, time, gentlemen, please.